Hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Thanks for coming to hang out. Hope you enjoyed the Nile. If not, I'm not sorry. Yeah, so I have no idea what we're gonna do. We're gonna run through Usurpation. It's the first song off our album of Rotten Ruin. Just kind of taking you through some of the like songwriting choices, some of the reasons why we did what we did. Um, I have the stems here so we can listen to the individual elements like the drums and the bass and the guitars and vocals and some of the extra little like salt and pepper shit that's all thrown up in here. Before we start, I do just want to say thank you. I've seen a bunch of people that started following. I got Bia, Mater856, Futhar Clem. I am so sorry if I butcher these usernames. Classy Wrestler, Uncle Vatrid21, Trill Bill, Trill Billy NYE, Trill Billy Nye, AJS0, Gruncho Music, Chronic Narcotic, Thraxis, Hippie Mofo 1, Princess Armina, Kellen, and Zip76. Thank you so much for following. I appreciate it so much. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna open up the session for Usurpation here, and just hang out. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat, and we'll have I'll try to answer them the best I can. Um, and yeah, hopefully this won't be too long and take up too much of your day. So we'll just jump right in here. So this is the STEM session for Usurpation. I took all the individual elements and brought them down into stereo pairs. So we have the drums, bass, rhythm, guitars, leads, auxiliary stuff that can be a multitude of different things. And then we have the vocals and the different samples. In this song's case, it's the swell-in with the bells. There's a couple bass drops in there, nothing too crazy. Um, yeah, first thing to kind of point out, this is from the original sessions, like I said. We had the working title of Worm for this song for the longest time. We have a tendency of just naming songs random things when we're just kind of starting them out, no real rhyme or reason, but it kind of stuck through everything. And so that's why it says Worm at the top. Um, the other thing to kind of note too, and this is something I tend to do with a lot of our songs and a lot of my bands in general, when we write the songs, it's generally one static tempo. So in this song's case, we started it at 250. And once the song is totally written out, we'll kind of go through and adjust the individual tempos for each section. So like if a verse sounds cooler being just a couple BPMs faster, a couple BPMs slower, or there are many instances in this case, like the verse section where it'll drop a couple dB just because there's a feel change. And with all of our songs, we kind of want to give it the feel that we're kind of jamming in the room. And just like kind of naturally, there are some parts where it may kind of feel like it's lurching, and we really want to overemphasize it without it being too obvious. So I'll kind of go through and like there's some 5 BPM, 3 BPM. I think the biggest one is coming out of the solo and into the singing at the end of the song. That's a 10 BPM jump, but the kind of goal with that is not necessarily um, to like hear it happen when it happens, and more so to just kind of feel it. Like you don't want it to come across as like a very drastic tempo change as much as it's just like this big ramp up point for the end of the song. Yeah, and then there's other things to note. There's like dumb little markers and stuff kind of thrown away. Like at the end, we didn't quite know what the end section was going to be, so we kind of named it Hook, maybe. Unsure as to what that was supposed to be. But yeah, I guess we'll just start right at the top. In case you're curious as to what these other tracks are, I also use these sessions when I make click tracks for live, so this is just a printed click. And this is a count in for me when we play live. It just gives me like a little bit of a notification as to where we're at. And then the other track up at the top is just a MIDI track. So when I send it to the guys and they want to put it in Reaper or Logic or whatever, they essentially get the same exact session. So, yeah. I'll just play the intro bit here, maybe up until the first verse, and then kind of see what's going on. All right, cool. Yeah. Thanks, Bia. Appreciate it. Yeah, we're very happy with this album, and especially the tone that we were able to get from it. One other thing to note too, this is going to sound different than what you may hear on like Spotify or Google Music or whatever, because this is essentially the final sounding product before we sent it out for mastering with Alan Dalgis. So if you're listening to it and you're like, it does kind of sound a little different or weird compared to what you're used to hearing, that's why, because Alan Dalgis is the fucking man and made my mixes sound way better. So yeah, I mean, this is the intro here. Excuse me. So these are the samples. So what's going on here is there's a couple bell samples. There's that choir sample. And then we have, yeah, I mean, just the bass drops. Their bells hit twice after the intro. So there's that one there. And then right at the end where there's that like drum fill going into the little guitar feature. And then just a little kiss of a bass drop there. One thing I didn't know that was in here that I laughed hysterically at once I pulled these sessions back open was right where the full band hits. There's this, which I'm pretty sure is just Frank saying "ooh" into the microphone. It just found its way there. Yeah, so going under here, one thing we like to do a lot is we'll have these kind of droney patches going on. So this comes in halfway through the intro. And there's the other guitars for reference. Yeah, so we use that a lot as a way to just kind of build some ambience. So that way it's not just a very tight, dry, because I mean everything in this is very, very dry. Like there's some reverb on the drums, but not too much. And then the bass is obviously very dry, very distorted. And contrary to how everything sounds together, these guitars don't have that much distortion on them. Like I'll play you just a little section later here, the chorus chug section. There's very little gain on it. It's all the Lone Wolf Audio left-hand Wrath pedal, the Bloodbath edition. This guy right here. Gives it some extra, a little extra sauce, a little extra crunch. But with everything together, it sounds just thunderous. Yeah, I mean, and then here's one of those examples, going into this little build-up section, the tempo drops 5 dB, and then immediately picks right back up in the verse, puts it right back at 250, you can see here. So it kind of, you're building up, there's this blast beat section, and then it goes real ham with the double bass and the blast beat right before the verse. And then that tempo change really just kind of reinforces that tempo change, reinforces that feel right into that thrash beat. Is it a preamp or is it just a distortion pedal? It's basically the Boss HM2, but with a lot of extra kind of bells and whistles. So it's got a blend knob here, so you can have it all the way just your regular tone or all the way pedal tone in it. We kind of kept it right around the middle, and then immediately after this, we had the Horizon Devices Precision Drive to kind of suck it all back in. And then it's just got your like volume low, a middle frequency, so you can dial in that kind of like chainsaw sound, whether you want it really bright or whether you want it just kind of more throaty and rumbly. That's mid, high. There's a presence knob, and then the actual distortion knob. So it's basically an HM2 on crack, and it sounds awesome. I love it. And we ran that into a Mesa Boogie Mark V and a Orange Rocker Verb, and that was the tone. The vocals here are kind of interesting. We did this thing a lot on Hive, our EP, where we stacked a lot of vocals together and made them very wet with reverb and delay. And going into recording the record, Frank wanted to do that again, but didn't want it to be the same. So this is kind of like our take on what we were doing on Hive, but kind of more in line with what he wanted for this part here. So it's less of a just big wall of vocal as much as it is kind of like a swirling, panning from left to right, kind of filling up the whole sonic space. One thing also, so here's one example where we have some auxiliary instruments. In this case, it's actually here and at the end of the song. It's Mellotron in the like string patch, and then a big dirty B3 organ. Yeah, and that's pretty much just reinforcing what the guitars are doing. It adds, it gives the guitars a little bit of extra girth and also gives it a little bit more top end to it. And there's also that change where the Mellotron and stuff go octave up right here. It's basically the same chord that the one guitar is doing, just the octave up, so that way it really makes it kind of pop out of the speakers a little bit. Yeah, so that pretty much covers this. So here you'll see, I'll play from the first verse through this chug section, I guess would technically be the chorus. I'll just play through that so you can kind of see these tempo changes. So like you'll see it goes, starts out at 250, drops to 247, drops to 245, drops way down to 243. So by now we're almost a full 10 dB slower than where we started. And then the start of verse 2 kicks right back up to 250. So you'll hear kind of how that feels and how it makes sense with like the parts that are being played. Yes, I mean you can see, starts out for that thrash beat, we're doing, full tilt 250 BPM. Start doing that kind of like halftime, like at the gates kind of like slower drum part, slows down a little bit, and then for those big chug sections, we really wanted to make it feel like it was just lurching on top of you. So we dropped it down even further. And then for when it does the double bass version, goes down even more than that. And here's one of those examples where we have that kind of drone, and it's more or less just the same. It's keeping one tone and then just pitching it up half a step, and we're doing that with guitar, so it's nothing too crazy. Just very reverbed out. Oh, thanks, AOH Legend. Thanks for following. Yeah, like you can see, it's just they're adding just a little bit of like eeriness, and kind of makes it feel a little uncomfortable at times because it's the same note just an octave apart, and then it's just being pitched very slightly, like a quarter step, half step, and with all the delay and stuff swirling around, it really makes it feel gross. And the bass just sounds absolutely crushing there too. Yeah, and I mean, so then from there, we do this short little like transition. Yeah, and so this one's slightly different. So the verse goes, kicks right back up to 250, stays that way. And this time the chorus chug section is faster than the first one because we're trying to push the song forward to where we get to this big epic bridge section where it has all those open notes and tremolo picking. We want to really just kind of help the song kind of push itself there. And the same thing, we have the drones happening here. Let me play a little bit of Frank's vocal during that chug section. Just a heads up, Frank really loves a lot of like delay and reverb. Well, I think we all kind of really like a lot of delay and reverb on his vocal. It kind of makes it just sound very cavernous. It kind of gives you a little bit of that like old school death metal sound without being like the old school death metal sound, like the very cavernous, growly vocal. Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting too, we are very like we love Frank's voice, and actually when he started screaming for the high VP, we were very taken back with how awesome his voice sounded. So pretty much like we try to keep it where it's one track the entire time. So we'll go when we're recording them, we'll go through the song and we'll get one really great take for the entire time. And more often than not, that's what stays. So the only time that there's ever any sort of doubles or like layers and stuff is if we're trying to accent things and not so much keep it that way the entire time. So more often when you're listening to the record, it's just one track of Frank. And then occasionally, some accented pieces where we'll either double it in the same layer, or we will, we'll layer it with like a high and a low, or a mid and a high, or, whatever the case is, typical death metal stuff. So yeah, coming out of this, we go into this bridge section, and it's got this fun little lead going into it. And again, we like there's more of that drone. going through that whole bit, and then we just have that lead sitting kind of right on top. Drums doing just a fuck ton of double bass, and bass is just kind of grooving out with it. Oh, and so the next half of this bridge section, I'll play the guitars real quick first too, so you can hear that. So we wanted to really make that part kind of jump without being more the same. So we changed the drums there from being straight, that kind of thing. We have the tom groove that's happening there too. Hey, Thraxis, what's going on, baby? So yeah, so we have the drums kind of change over to this like kind of jungle tom groove. And then the bass changes there too. I don't know how many of you can pick up on that on the record. We've definitely tried to make it kind of really up front without it taking up too much of the vocal. But it's this really awesome slap part that Greg came up with. Yeah, and then it's just kind of like there's not an actual like it's funny. So the coming out of that part, it feels like it's slowing down, but it's staying consistent, and then it actually gets faster, just a little bit going into the next part. Just can't get over the bass tone. I know we love it, and Greg still talks about it. Still loves that bass tone. Yes, I mean this is just a nice little like we call it the doomy part. Well, I call it the doomy part, and it's mostly there. It's really just kind of just a chill way to kind of take a break from everything that's happened before it. Um, we didn't want it to come off with parts like these. It can really sound hokey if you have them too fast, which is another reason why like if we kept the song at 250 the entire time, I don't think that this part would hit as hard as it does. Um, but like considering the part before is this really fast double bass section, that's a little bit slower. It kind of picks up. It's just 2 dB. It's going from 243 to 245. But I really that even that 5 BPM difference from where it was the beginning of the song just makes it sound so much like heavier than than if we were to have kept it at 250. Now coming up in this next part is the guitar cuts down to just one guitar track, and it's got this EQ on it that takes away everything else and makes it sound like it's coming through like an old phone. I do that a lot, especially if it's like a single guitar section and it's an extended guitar section, like if it's going on for maybe like 2 or 3 bars. I'll put this on even if it's just a little bit because I feel like it helps when the next part comes in really fucking smack you in the face. So I really, doing it there really, I think, kind of did its job. Oh, thanks, B. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Thraxis, it does almost sound like an old modem, like one of those old ones that every time you turn it on or you're trying to connect to the internet, sounds like your house is gonna fly away. Yeah, so I mean, this section here, it kind of bounces. You have that kind of like Gojira-y kind of drum part. It's a little bit slower or a little bit faster than the next part that happens, this like chug section where the vocals are. So you have this bit that's at 250. So there's these big 5 BPM jumps, but it really helps kind of like tease that like you're getting faster, but then it really pulls you back behind. Yeah, and with the guitar parts that are happening there too, you kind of have this like that kind of like very sludgy, swirly kind of guitar parts that really help sell. Going from that into the chugging really helps sell those feel changes without it sounding like obnoxious. Yeah, and then we have Frank's vocal. This is something we do a lot on the record too, where he'll have like one track of him like super, super low, and then kind of double track it with something that's a little bit more, I guess, more traditional kind of black metal-y. Like we were calling him the Demu vocal.
Every pound of flesh, every bleeding wretch.
Because it's like it's very low, it's very guttural, but you have those like almost like talking vocals off to the side that really kind of give it some clarity and a little kind of, again, the whole, I feel like the MO with this record was adding these little extra pieces that really feel uncomfortable. The depth of this album is ridiculous. Oh, thanks, dude. Definitely we're trying to make it as dense but as palatable as we could. But yeah, and this is also a fun little thing, the little like shh sound that Frank adds at the end of Flesh. Almost kind of like going into like a shh sound. That was a nice little touch that we did there. Yeah, and then going out from this, we're right back into this groove here. Yeah, and this is a nice little kind of part. It's actually kind of funny, like harmonically, it doesn't quite end where it starts. It almost has like if you're thinking of these sections as like 4 bars, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they just repeat. You have like half of one that starts the riff, so that way like, and there's no like well, I guess there's like a little bit of symmetry to the part where it kind of like ends and starts it the same way, but it doesn't. The flow doesn't really help that any. Yes, I mean, that's just a fun little, it's really just there as like a way to transition from that kind of like slower paced, like almost halftime section before it, and trying to bridge it with this next part, which is a little, it's not really like a tech riff, but it kind of has that vibe to it. And also it's called the gross tech riff because for that first half of this part, and you really can hear it when it goes into the unpalm muted versions, the notes themselves are only like a step apart. So like if one, let's kind of in simple terms, you have one guitar player that's doing 710, 710 on like the A string, the other guitar player is doing 811, 811. So those notes are only a half step apart, but only for like the first half of that section. So like, and then here it harmonizes. You get like, I'll solo it for when it goes open. You can really tell. I'll play the whole thing. Yes, I mean it's just that like that little bit of like the whole thing is really just a whole bit of like tension and release, but it's like usually you're thinking of that like you're building tension throughout a part to then release it right at the end to go into the next part, whereas this we're doing you're we're trying to resolve it halfway through the riff is even done, and then it fully resolves at the very end. Oh, what's up, Weasel Lad? Yeah, further Clem. It's definitely yeah, it definitely took a lot for us to kind of get it to this point. So it's we pride in the in the details. So yeah, this next part, this is where the solo is, and the going into it, we weren't sure if this was going to be where we were singing, or if we were going to be doing this a solo here or switching them. Ultimately, we kind of felt that this part had a little bit more harmonic content. Like there's a lot of changes with these octaves and the chords that really gave Pete enough room to build a solo off of versus the part afterwards. Oh, what's up, Shane Souls? How are you doing? And Kellen, what's going on, dude? But yeah, so I'll play the bass and the guitar so you can kind of hear what's going on underneath the solo, so you can kind of get an idea as to what I'm talking about. Yes, I mean it's a very simple kind of like chord progression, um, but these are parts where we really kind of let Greg kind of do his thing bass wise, because he has a very good ear with picking out like good passing tones to get from like one note to the other, and you can really hear it in this part where he has like these like chromatic walk downs. Yeah, Shred Force One. We'll get there. Um, and yeah, I'm obviously gonna play just the vocals for that section. But yeah, so like I'll play just the bass so you can hear like the guitars are doing something very simple. Like the left guitar is basically playing one chord the entire time with the I think it's just the low note that's changing. So I'll play that real fast. And then that whole section just repeats. So it's you kind of get like a bedrock there, and that ducking out there is actually the printed automation, because I have the solos ducking out the rhythm guitars just a little bit, so that way like you can hear it clearly. Like if I play the solo over that, you're not going to hear the change. Yeah, so it's just, I mean, that's just like a little mix trick that I do to make sure that the solo always stays on top. It actually happens throughout the song with the vocals too. The vocals just kind of like bring the guitars down so that way the vocals can always sit right on top. But this is the bass for that section. Yeah, so and something he also does there too that really helps build that part into the next is he basically does the same lower second half, but just the octave up. So it's the exact same notes that are being played, just the second half is then played an octave up. Hey Shane Souls, sorry it's being weird for you. Yeah, these are all. This is gonna stay on Twitch, and we're also gonna upload these to YouTube and to Facebook as well. So if you happen to catch this now and you wanted to rewatch the first half or something like that, you'll be able to watch them. Um, yeah, you'll be able to watch that on YouTube and all that fun stuff. Yeah, Callan, we love the bass tone on this. Um, but yeah, Greg does that a lot in a lot of our songs where he'll play the same progression of bass notes, but like the second half or maybe somewhere in the middle, he'll do it the octave up. Or if he's starting the octave up, he'll bring it the octave down, just so that way it really helps like steer the riff where it's going to go. So like you're even if you had no idea what was happening next, you knew that something was coming because between the solo finishing and the note choices going into this next part really help sell. So I'll play just the instruments the second half when he goes the octave up. I muted the vocal so that way you won't kind of get that, but you'll hear everything going into this next part. Yeah. And I'll also play, because I totally forgot. So here's where those auxiliary instruments and stuff come back in towards the end. So I'll play the solo and these like the stuff that's going on. So again, in this case it's Mellotron doing like a string patch, and then the B3, the distorted B3 organ. Yeah, so they're doing the same all the organ and the mellotron there are playing the same progression, but they're adding lots of like just neat little like extra note choices and stuff to really kind of like make that part super super dense. And then yeah, coming out of that, we have these little like lead thing going on with the drones that have been pretty much happening for the rest of the song and even the part before it. Yeah, thanks, Shred Force One. Yeah, that's kind of the whole point with this. I hope that like we are by no means like groundbreaking songwriters and everything. This is more or less just like everything that we've kind of learned up until this point with songwriting between like a bunch of different genres and stuff, and just trying to make it. We're just trying to make something semi interesting, and we're really blown away with how receptive and how awesome everyone has been with their support on this record, and you know everything that we've done with it. So if we can do anything to help inspire people to do other cool shit, then I think we're all happy with it. Let's see. Yeah, so this next part, it's a super simple, super simple part. If you listen to just bass drums and rhythm guitars, it's two notes. It's going from the first fret on the E flat string, which is so we play on 7 strings, so instead of the low string, it would be the next string up. First fret on that, and then just chugging on the open string. And then it does a Kellen, organs are an awesome way to, even if you're not necessarily adding them for um like harmonic context, like with notes and things like that, even if all you're using it for is just to play the same exact thing the guitars are doing, that's a really easy way to like beefing them up and give them more weight than just the guitars by itself. um we at least with any of the organ, like any of those extra like like production spices, we don't try to like make them the forefront really. Like there's been a couple times in the record and on the EP where we do a little bit of it just to kind of like be like a little bit of like ear candy to it, but more often than not we're using them as a way to like beefing up what's already there and really reinforce the like wall of sound that's happening. Yeah, so this is the singing like like actual chorus section, I guess. In this we have, so we heard the guitars, what they're doing. They actually changed to like this octave figure towards the end. And one thing we like to do a lot with our with these songs and with any of our songs is if we're doing octave uh riffs like that where it's, you know, we're doing the same octave line between the two guitars, we usually like to keep an open note in there to just make it always feel a little bit gross. This guitar is ancient, so I have no idea if you'll be able to hear it, but so if we do like so like those are the three same notes. What we'll typically do is we'll keep that note ringing the entire time. So it'll be like it always adds a little bit of like dissonance through the whole thing, and never like you, it feels like melodic and it feels like it's got a lot of like almost like traditional motive going through it, but with that open string it really just kind of like dirties it up and again makes it feel super uncomfortable. So I'll play now because I'm sure everyone's wanting to hear it, the singing vocals that are well, the vocals in general that are happening over this part, and I'll play the extra stuff too since we know what the guitars are doing, we know the bass is doing and the drums. I'll play this the organ and the mellotron along with this little like lead that's happening under it. I'll bring that up because there's like the end of the solo and then the vocal. Yeah, so let's do that. Ooh.
The dark be cast upon the world, wasted to death by sloth, the might of the tempest. For he who lets the light die out.
Yeah, the singing is huge there. Yeah, thanks guys. But yeah, so the production wise on this part, so this was actually the first song that we decided that we were going to do singing on it. We wanted to do singing on the EP, but we didn't feel like that the parts had anywhere that singing could go and not sound like we fucking push that shit into there without any regard to what was going on. This was the first song in the first part where we were like, yeah, singing should absolutely go here, but we were very unsure of how we wanted to incorporate it. So we have it set up in a way where we have 2 tracks of Frank doing the main melody line. We have 2 tracks of Greg doing the same melody line. So right there is 4 tracks singing the same main melody line. And then we have Greg doing 2 tracks of the harmony. And that's kind of like what you're hearing on like your left and right ear if you're listening on headphones or on speakers. So Greg is out on the sides, and then we basically have the same amount of vocal, but screamed as well. So we have like 2 tracks of just really low, just brutal screaming. And then every time that there's a harmony section or a part where there's a harmony happening in the singing, Frank has a layer of screaming on top of that too. So you'll usually at the biggest sections there will be like 2 tracks of lows, 2 tracks of mids, 2 tracks of highs, and that's just really what kind of like pushes that like way out. I think what I'll do, and if you guys want, because I plan on doing one of these videos for each of the songs on the record. If you guys would prefer this way, that's cool. But if you would prefer it where you can see the individual tracks versus these stereo stems, let me know. I've been playing around with whether or not to do that, like if that's cooler for you guys or if you guys would prefer seeing it how you're seeing it now. Yeah, just let me know in the chat and in the comments and stuff. But yeah, so in future videos, if we decide to break it down even further, you'll see all the individual tracks and just how, fucking nuts we went with it. Yeah, so I mean, we're coming in to the end of the song here. So here's where I was talking about where it bounces up between 240 and 250. That's a huge, like 10 BPM jump. I feel like in any other context, you would feel that. But for some reason, when we did this, we knew that we wanted the end to be faster because, again, we didn't know how the singing was going to be. So we kind of wanted to like speed it up so we can rush past it and not really ignore it. Like we obviously didn't want to ignore the fact that we were doing it, but we wanted it to kind of come and go because we didn't know how people were going to respond to it. But yeah, so you have that little bit of a drop when it goes to double bass here. And that really helps sell, because before that in the solo, it's very minimal. Like there's just some like bended notes, some slides and stuff like that. So it really, that little slowdown with the double bass, you have like instead of the drums being like the rhythmic pulse in the second half as much as they are in the first half. So you have the drums kind of holding it down along with the bass, and the guitars are doing something very, very easy, very, very minimal. And then in the second half, the drums and bass kind of like sit back, and then the guitars are going, nuts with the solo there. And then, yeah, they have this big ramp up. And that's something that we like to do a lot in our songs too, is we'll speed up the end of the songs. So then versus what they were in the beginning to really like just take it all the way, take it to the hole essentially. So you have this whole ending part is at 250, and then the outro, which is the exact same thing as the intro, is 5 BPM faster. So you're coming out of this, going into the end. Yeah, and I mean, that's the song. There's not a whole lot happening in the end versus the beginning. We wanted the vocals to almost kind of like fall apart at the very end because we just didn't want it to be like a standalone scream. So we kind of have it going where Frank's holding out this big scream, and then it just kind of gets like swallowed up with like delay and reverb, and then it cuts off right at the end where he does that little like bleh. Yeah, and then we have, again, more of that like droning sound happening towards the end. Yeah, and I think the only other thing, there are parts, like you'll see these like very small waveform vocal tracks. Looks like we only have that one. I thought we did more in this song, but we love to do this thing. Bloodbath does it a lot, and we call it the Bloodbath scream. Pretty much what it is just like this way in the back scream that happens, and we'll just pan left to right. So we have like this part. Yeah, it's just one scream that Frank did, and he held it out that, for that length of time that we needed, and then just like totally ate it up with reverb. Yeah, and then that's just a small little, like a little bit of salt and pepper to like really season that part up. That was super corny. I'm so sorry. um, but yeah, I mean that's all of Usurpation. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you guys have any questions, I'll answer. Let's see if there's any questions that you guys have here. Love the individual track videos because you can just pull one out. Yeah, yeah. I think the more that I think about it, the more I'm gonna want to, for these next few songs, to with the full sessions, so that way you guys can see. I think what I might do is, because the full mix sessions, I have my laptop has a hard time playing them with like all the plugins and stuff on it. So I think what I might do is I'll keep the individual tracks, and I think I might bake in the plugins and stuff, so that way my laptop doesn't cry when I'm trying to do that and stream at the same time. But I'll definitely make it work. I plan to do these once a week, maybe at the same time. I'll do them at 3 o'clock Eastern every Thursday. No questions yet. Only congratulations, great song. Oh, thanks, B. Yeah, we really appreciate it, and love the playthroughs. Thanks. Yeah, we work really hard on getting them done. Ritual is such an interesting song. Love to see. Yeah, Kellen. You're gonna get the whole bag, bro. And Rituals, yeah, there's a lot. I think Rituals and Accursed are two of the most like dense. Like, there's a lot going on in those songs besides just the rhythm, like the guitars, the bass, drums, and vocals. Like, there's so much more. Like, there's percussion. There's like crazy instruments that's going on there too. And some like extra kind of spicy stuff that's going on. Yeah, so I'm excited to do the rest of these for you guys. Let's see. Made her if a live quarantine show to make up for canceled tour. We were hoping to do that. I think in March we were planning to do something where we got together and played our tour set at my studio, but it was like the week that we finally thought that we had everything together to where we could do that. Both New Jersey, which is where we all live, and Pennsylvania, where my studio is, totally just like that was when all the stay-at-home orders went through, so we didn't get a chance to do that. But I think we're hoping to do something like that at the end of all this. Would you consider selling these tracks so people can mix them themselves? I have no idea the logistics behind that, and I have no idea if our label would like that or not. But I think we have played around with something to do something like that. I just don't know to what capacity we'd be able to, in terms of like having the individual tracks out. Secret to this awesome bass tone. It's so the bass itself is just I think it's 3 tracks. It's the straight up bass DI. It's this, where is it? It's this Dark Glass Ultra plugin by Neural DSP is like the main tone that you hear. It's just this. It's basically the Dark Glass pedal, the B7K Deluxe or Ultra. I think it's if I just roughly, I think it's something like this is how we had it set, and I couldn't for the life of me remember what these frequency knobs were set to. But this is like the fundamental sound on the bass, and then the DI is cut, so it's only the low end and only the very very top end. Like I think it's like 200 hertz and below, and I think like 4K and above is what it's down to. Then this kind of fills in the middle, and then I have a third track where it's like obliterated. It's and I think I used the this guy, the SansAmp plugin that comes with Pro Tools, and I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I dimed everything and then brought these down and then made that just like an acceptable level, and then filtered a huge portion of the crap out, so that way all you're hearing is just like the buzz from this. You're getting the like clacking of the strings from the DI, and you're getting the low end from the DI, and then just kind of like all the other goodness is coming from that B7K. See, you sound. That's what it sounds like. It's probably not the sickest tone I've heard, but it was the best tone I thought would fit, because the guitars, while they don't have that much gain to them, still are very full frequency because of the pedal, because of that left hand Wrath pedal. So we didn't want to do anything with the bass that would overshadow the guitar tone. And the guitar tone is kind of scooped, like right around like the 5 to 800 range, and the bass kind of like fills that gap in nicely, and then also extends out the low end. Like I think it's really apparent in this like doomy section. Yeah, so they kind of work together, but it's very much not a whole lot. And then there's like a ton of compression and all that fun stuff. Have I heard of Nail the Mix? Yes, I am. I have been a member of Nail the Mix back before they were Nail the Mix, and they were a podcast. I've been following them since day one, and it's such an awesome program. If you had heard any of my mixes prior to me joining Nail the Mix, you would laugh. I laugh. They're horrible. They suck. If you wanted to hear it, the very first Ophidius EP, Ophidius is how it's spelled. Absolutely awful. But like you listen to that first EP and then the second EP, and there, I think it was like 4 years in between them, and I like really dove into like the classes and stuff within Nail the Mix. It's like so obvious that like I was obviously helped to get to that point. It'd be rad to get one of your tracks on there. It would, but I do not belong in that like echelon of mixers that are up on there. Like you have fucking Jens Bogren and Jacob Hansen on there. Like stop, I don't belong there. But yeah, is there any parts that anyone wants to hear, like any sections of this song where you want to hear like a particular element? Like do you want to like just listen to the guitar over like the chug sections? Do you want to hear the drums over like this part, the bass over on this part, or any other like questions? Yeah, because I mean we've been going at this for about an hour. Not a whole lot else I think I can dive into with this song in this state that we're in. Like I said, with other songs, starting next week with Currents is going to be the next one I do. I'm just going to go right in order. There's nothing to hide there. So next week I'm going to do Currents. You'll see the individual tracks and how things are kind of made up. And yeah, I hope to kind of keep these all within about an hour. I don't think anybody wants to watch these for more than an hour. And yeah, I'm a big fan of singling the bass and drums to hear they play together. Are there any parts that you feel do that in an interesting way? Um, so I really love the tom and bass groove from earlier here over this bridge section. I think that just sounds awesome because it's just straight double bass, cool tom groove, and the bass is doing that like slap and pop section. I'll play that real fast. Honestly, this part's probably really cool as far as like drum and bass grooves go. I know when we play this live, Greg and I are like super deep in that pocket, just kind of jamming on this part. And I do accents. It's a shame. So with all these songs, I think well, no, I know. Or drums were one of the last things to get recorded. So when we recorded the guitars, bass, vocal, actually, I think bass may have been done after the drums. But like we essentially started with guitars. We did the guitar that you're hearing on the right was done first. And then we did vocals. And then the guitar on the left. And then drums. And then bass. And then leads and solos and stuff were done at the end. And what sucks about doing it that way and the fact that we didn't really, so when we were recording this, Frank was living in Ohio, so he was living in a totally different state than where we were at, and made it very difficult to practice considering our singer and at the time our only guitar player was living halfway across the country. So we were kind of just going by how things reacted with the MIDI drums that were over here. And after this part was recorded and done, I was like, man, there's like towards the end, there's like a kind of bit. It's this one right here. So you have like those little like stabs and accents there. So immediately after we recorded this and we were like just about done recording everything, I was like, man, we all really missed a big opportunity to like really accent that part there. So if you watch our playthrough for this song, that's how we play it live. And there's like the like dun, 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 like there's like that little like drum accent that, and the bass is really short there too. That's how we wanted that part to sound before we knew what that part was going to sound. Is there anything that you're already planning on doing differently in terms of mixing and recording for the next hour? And also, what's the name of that? Oh, man. So we haven't. Right now we're still writing the next record. In terms of like anything that I think I'm gonna do differently with like the mixing and recording, we plan to do everything close to about the same time. It took us about a year to record this record just because of scheduling. I was getting really busy at the studio, so I didn't have enough time. I think I snuck in doing the drum recordings. I did them in about a day and a half because I had just finished recording one session, and then the following week another session was coming in to be recorded. So I was like, if I don't record the drums this week, it's going to be another couple of months, and I don't want to be the thing that holds up this record. So I pretty much like did them on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I like combed everything over, comp takes, like all that stuff. And then I work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at a full-time job, so I wanted to make sure that I had everything done then with some extra days in case I needed to retrack anything. Because as soon as I was done that, I wouldn't have time to do it any other way. And same thing, like we recorded one guitar on September of I think 2017, I think. Yeah, and another little tidbit, I recorded the guitar on the right when you're listening to the record, um, because we only had one guitarist at the time, and that was Frank. And so me and Frank recorded the guitars for the rhythm guitars for this and for the high VP. And then we picked up Pete right towards the end, and then he recorded solos for everything. All the solos, and there are a handful of like leads and stuff too that he did on this record. So, but again, like it was like the one guitar was done in 2017. Um, Vocals were done, I want to say in the spring of 2018, and then drums and bass were done in the summer of 2018, and then like the last bits were done through like the rest of the year into like the fall. And then I think we submitted the record after it was done being mixed and mastered. I think it was like November, December of 2018, and then it was released April 2019. Or yeah, but so yeah, number one thing I think we would do differently is do it all together with all of us in the same room or very close to that kind of environment. We would never record like full band, but like having everybody there so that way we can all give input towards everything, I think is when we make our best decisions. And so getting back to that, I think will be sick. Sorry, that was like an 18-minute answer for something that probably should have only taken like 3 minutes. Yeah. Yes, I mean, we've been at this for about an hour and 15 minutes. If no one has any other like questions or anything they want to hear, I think this stream will be wrapped up. This has been really fun. I had no idea what how this was gonna go, and I think it went pretty well. Oh, thanks, Kellen and Shredforce1. You guys are bros. You guys are awesome. And everybody else that's watching too. Thank you so much for hanging out with me during all this. Like I said, I'm gonna try to do these every week. Probably same thing. Probably starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time. It's 4:10 now. In case you're wondering what time it is in your end. Yeah, so I mean, I think it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. I'm not trying to make these like educational or anything. I mean, I'm not trying to like teach you guys like, hey, this is how you should write songs. Like, this is just, we're all stuck in quarantine together. So this is just a nice way that I think we can kind of just have fun, just hang out. Thanks, guys. Yeah, and I think we're also trying to make this a platform where the other guys can do stuff too. Like, I think Frank was going to try to do some like gaming on this channel. So if you guys wanted to, like, if you're into watching like gaming streams and stuff, he's going to be doing some of that. And then Pete, I think, is going to be hopping on here every now and again to just play guitar and hang out. Thanks for the follow, Shredforce1. Yeah, so this has been fun. I don't know how to end these, so thanks, and I'll see you guys